And we will now move on to our final presentation. I can't believe we've made it through that quickly. The final presentation is coming to us from Athens, Greece, and it's Mina Kouvra. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I didn't get a chance to verify earlier. You can berate me when you have the mic if it's not. This presentation is titled "Reading Between the Lines: Landscapes in a State of Limbo." Mina is a professional architect and holds an MSc in Environment and Development of Mountain Regions by the Technical University of Athens. She is a co-founder of the itinerant workshop for the traditional building techniques Buluki, which I also hope I'm pronouncing correctly, working with cultural heritage in remote regions. Her current independent research is focused on participatory and community-led practices in the perception, interpretation, and management of landscapes as ways to reestablish our relation to the commons for a healthy and bright future for all. Are you ready to go, Mina?
Yes, I am. Thank you for the introduction. Can you hear me?
And yours, yes, we can. And your presentation is pre-recorded, am I correct?
Yes, yes.
Excellent.
Hello everybody, this is Mina speaking. The following array of thoughts aims at addressing the landscape illiteracy in Greece by demonstrating a few observations from the field. To explain my points, I will refer to examples from the region of Epirus, which is located in northwest Greece. The concept of landscape being both a sight and a sight, a way of seeing or representing the world, a palimpsest of labor on the land, and on top of all, a concept in between, comprises a multifunctional tool that can be used for a huge variety of purposes. As such, landscape has been useful for policymakers in the management of space and resources, both natural and cultural. Unfortunately, in the case of Greece, its flexible character has been poorly institutionalized and at times transformed into a competitive product for economic growth. On top of that, and for many reasons, one of which is education, as citizens or communities, we do not have equal access to this tool, and as time passes and as we remain landscape illiterate, we're also missing a way to efficiently understand the commons, while the world is progressing in frenzy. By experience, it feels crucial to help with each other's theories and methods, so that our critical thinking and scientific approach reaches out to all those who we love to call the communities, yet we usually fail to define or even find them, engage them, and explain to them the value of our wonderful discoveries. I remember the first time I saw a cow on those mountains and yelled with excitement. What an urban lady I was! The people around looked at me both disappointed and surprised. Since that moment, I've taken a lot of air out of the ideas balloon, just to keep it a bit closer to the ground. In any case, it seems to me today that we stand together after all, old and young, aware or not, within a liminal space and a threshold of time, the last connecting thread between a world that is disappearing and the world that is forcing the old one to disappear. We are running too fast, too far from the core. It seems that as societies we stand deprived from the mechanisms that would allow us to look and understand the world again as a whole, and at the same time our individual efforts will never be enough. From my point of view, I perceive heritage through the lens of landscape, and landscape through the lens of the commons, and the commons through the lens of heritage, and so on, a circular way of thinking that naturally accommodates all the relations and all the tensions of the human nature meshwork. Now let's leave the circles and talk about lines based on examples from Epirus, and specifically the mountain areas of Jumerka and Zagori. And let's try to focus on a paradox, that policies related to landscape as commons are either non-existent or do not take it into account as such. This case from Jumerka comprises a typical example of how the management of landscape as combinations of unrelated fragments lurks the danger of fabricated narratives, and also the danger to lose sense of even the simplest affordances implied by the landscape. Imagine that you walk on the old pathway to go from point A to point B, passing through agricultural land, old houses, stone walls, a small church. You go up and down following the terrain. Your views change, your body listens. You reach the monumental bridge and cross the wildest river of Greece. Now imagine that you take the new shortcut to a landmark, the bridge. This fragmentation, both in theory and practice, has led even the older ones to treat the landscape like that, and reminds me of that other problem, ownership. Who owns the boundary of our common land? Now let's go a bit to the north in Zagori. So that you know, an effort for it to be inscribed in the UNESCO World Heritage List as cultural landscape is underway. I wonder how smooth the process of setting the boundaries can be, and how regional cohesion won't be sacrificed, given that the circumstances are so blurry. And of course, it is not just the cultural commons to be discussed. It's been a long time since the threatening prospect of oil extraction that has divided local societies, as usually between those who are pro-development and those who are seemingly not. Oil extraction, even within protected Natura zones? What to do? Well, why not add new lines within the lines of environmental law? It's all about lines. Lines about national growth, in line with the perpetuating recession, in line with distressing occurrences that only an investor as a modern deus ex machina can save us from. And finally, referring to the whole of Greece, there is the placing of wind turbines on every possible ridge. A rather important aspect of why green energy is in dispute. As the palimpsest is torn, all left to say is, "Oh Don Quixote, we should have known." Reaching the end, I hope that you got an idea about the Greek case, and hopefully you also got a glimpse of why it feels that landscape here is in a state of limbo, waiting to be freed from the misfortunes of poor legislations so that it can be rightfully used as implement for safeguarding our collective knowledge and memory, for governing the commons, and co-creating futures of our own making. Although it is obvious, we do not yet see that innovation and local ingenuity, progress and memory share the same foundations. This is indeed a way, or the way, of seeing things that landscape can teach. And by placing stones along a path with your bare hands can always be a good start for such a revelation. Thank you for listening.
Wonderful, thank you. That's certainly the most whimsical slides of the day. And I think probably the best use of Paul Klee I've ever seen in a presentation. So thank you for that. Are there any points of are there any points of clarification from the audience? There's really quite interesting notion of care coming in here too, that the care exercised in the landscape by a commons is, or the landscape indeed itself as a commons, is very different from the kind of care that's exerted on a privatized landscape, which I think must be very visible in the Greek context now.